All right, blessings, everyone. We are going to talk a little bit about the evolution technology and what it is. And we're going to go through all of the symbols and kind of talk a little bit about how you can use the technology. And then knowing that the technology is really the foundation of the products, of the cards, everything starts in the evolution technology. And then from there, the way you can see the DMT codes is that the DMT codes are the language or that is held in the frequency of 963. So the technology itself is kind of how we're turning on that frequency. And I call it turning it inside out. So it's taking the body consciousness, the way the cells, the distortion of the DNA, and it's taking it from observing a programmed reality to holding the frequency of source or 963 in expression so that the cells are kind of like you can see it like the sun is just shining, right? So that your cells become little suns where they're just shining. And what they're shining is the frequency of 963 when we turn it on. I want to talk just a little bit about where these symbols came from. And then I'm going to actually share my screen and we'll go through the technology itself. So these three symbols, I'll show you them. Put them in order. All right, so this one, whoop, there it is. So this one is the Lu or the luminous, which is the symbol that puts things into 0 point. Then we have the scalar or the SCA for short, which holds consciousness in 0 point. And then we have the 33, which is a mastery number. It is the highest mastery number, but what it is the frequency of 963 in the mind, body, and spirit as one. So this is the quantum body. This is the ability to turn on the frequency of source intelligence and be that intelligence in form. This is what we all are shooting for, is right here. So these three symbols have been with me pretty much my whole life, since I can remember. And if I trace it back to when I really started using them, I was probably right around 4 or 5. It was in my what I call my old house because we moved when I was 6. So it was before I was 6. So I know that's around what age I was. And we would still have to take naps, and I didn't like taking naps. And so I would lay in bed when it was time to take a nap, and to put myself to sleep, I would bring the symbols in through my brain. So I would take them, just like if you saw this, I would literally see it kind of moving through my brain. And by the time this last symbol would go through, I would fall asleep. It would just put me out just like that. And they've always just been kind of a part of me at some point. It was not really conscious and how much I was using them. It was more of just using them through the frequency. And what they helped me do was to be able to hold consciousness outside of my programming. And I would say that I've done a pretty good job of doing that. And I continue to get better at it. And I put a lot of that success into the technology that's held in these symbols. And I really do like to see these symbols as a technology, not necessarily a symbol, because the way they're all working together, they're doing something, right? They are actually activating a frequency of 963. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll see if I can get back to where I wanted to go. Yes. Okay. Can you guys see my screen? Will somebody answer? Yes?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Thank you for answering, because for some reason I can't see you now. Okay, so this is the evolution technology, and you'll see again that the symbols are on here. And can you guys see me pointing with my mouse to each symbol?
Yes.
No.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so you'll see that we have the Lu, the Ska, the 33, and then the Lu, the Ska, the 33. So they're each holding 2 triangles. And this is holding our basic foundation. So within the technology that's turning your cells or the DNA from observing its environment to holding the frequency of 963 and then allowing your consciousness to be held there, there are basic tools that we teach in order for you to actively participate in that frequency. So with that, each of these triangles here hold one of our foundational tools. So I'm not going to go through what each of those are, but I will name them. So we have the 5 levels of consciousness that are connected to the 5 bodies. Then we have the 7 elements that is connected to what I call the God sphere, but it's basically the ability to read frequency in the universal language of numbers and to know the frequency of the DMT codes because they each have a language. So that would be what is the last one. And then, of course, I don't know if you can see, but you'll see all these little lines that are kind of going through the symbol. That is your intuitive powers. That is how we read the intelligence of source once it's turned on. And then we'll just kind of leave it at that because we could dissect this even more. And I think we kind of went through the basics. The other way that we can use this technology is to be able to see or ask for information within the intelligence of source or 963. And the way that we can do that is what a lot of times when I do my DMT retreats, this is how we'll do it. So we'll start on this symbol right here, and we'll actually move all the way around until we end up right here. And a lot of people ask, well, why don't you start with and do it Lu Ska 33? And the reason that we're doing that is that we're always shifting consciousness back into that 0 point. Because when you become the intelligence, that's where you will actually exist. You won't exist in a space of observation. So when we're turning on these frequencies as we're evolving, we always want to start in the highest space that we can hold consciousness in the frequency of 963. So we're turning on that frequency. We're becoming aware of it in 0 point. And then we're turning on that frequency of 963. We're holding consciousness in that as high as we can. And then we're always wanting to go back to 0 point, because if we stay here or even here, because we haven't mastered holding consciousness in 963 beyond observation, then we start to loop because we stay in a frequency where we begin to create a pattern or a timeline, which creates another program. So we always, in the evolution retreat, end in that 0 point so that we're not creating another reality around what we were observed or what we have observed. Okay, so I am going to somehow get out of here and come back to you guys. Stop sharing. Okay, so then just really quick, I'm going to go through how we can use the symbols just in daily life to shift frequency. So when you're struggling, you're stuck in a loop. Let's say you're finding it hard to pull on something that's creative. You're having trouble moving out of a thought pattern. You're in an emotional response to something. You're in a relationship that you're trying to break a loop. I mean, whatever it is, you can just put whatever you're working on in your life. You can literally put this here. So with that, you would just bring your attention to whatever it is that you're trying to shift. It could be even pain in the body. I always do this right before. I know you guys, I'm obsessed with working out. Okay. I'm just going to say it because that is when I learned to master my quantum body. It really is. Like, I am so focused because I have to push myself beyond the limitations of my mind. And I can do that really, really well in most areas of my life. So when I am doing something like pushing my body to a limit, that right there is my sweet spot, because the only way I can get past it is to move into my quantum body. And it's just so amazing to move into it when you're in a state like that. So I do this before I work out. And then if I start to go into conservation, or I start to kind of lose the ability to override the mind in my workout, I'll then just tap right back into that 33 and move my consciousness into my quantum body. But first symbol, you go in and you neutralize and bring whatever it is you're trying to shift into 0 point. You feel the shift. And honestly, sometimes that's all you need and it's done. And you can just go and explore what it is at 0 point. If you're actively participating in the shift of what it is that's changing, you're going to want to put your consciousness in that 0 point, because you're going to want to see what's beyond it, right? So you put your consciousness with the scalar, and this holds the 7 elements, which are 7 states of consciousness that we master until we become the intelligence. And then we turn on the frequency of 963. And you can see this as like turning on, almost like turning on a light that just goes right through consciousness. So you can see if your consciousness is being held in your cells or in your body or in the situation, and it's just hanging out in 0 point. Well, eventually it's either going to go back into the programming of what it was, or it needs to be held in another space, right? Because we don't know how to hold consciousness and expression or beyond observation. So you can see this as just like turning on the light or a frequency, and it just moves right through your consciousness so that you can start to attune your consciousness to the frequency of 963. It gives your consciousness somewhere to go and explore. You're literally turning on a frequency that's moving right through consciousness that was being held in 0 point. So there's no programming. And then you get to explore what that is. Okay, so with that, I feel like we've pretty much covered what the evolution technology is. So every time you are using a product, you are taking a class, you are attuning, know that the foundation is being held in the technology of the evolution symbol. And then the DMT codes are a way of communicating specific, well, they're all in the frequency of 963, specific information within the frequency of 963. So the DMT codes are doing something very specific once that DMT frequency is turned on. All right, I'm going to